Welcome all to this webinar where we're going to be talking about just insights from Pete, the GRC Recruiter. Did I get that right, Pete?
That is correct.
GRC Recruiter. All right. So you're giving us some insights on what all goes into this perspective from a technical recruiter as far as how to optimize your LinkedIn, what our recruiters looking for, and really focusing in on those CMMC and GRC careers. My name is Derrich Phillips. I'm the founder and president of Aspire Cyber. We are an approved training provider. Also, we specialize in CMMC readiness. I am a lead CCA. So in our capacity as delivering the CCP and CCA training, we get a lot of questions from people that complete our training. Once they get the certification, it's now what? How do I actually start making money and get employed? So that's the insights that Pete's going to provide to us today, and Amber's going to be our moderator. So let me hand it over to Pete. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Pete, before we
Awesome. Will do.
dive
Yeah.
in.
So my name is Pete Strouse. I've been recruiting for about 12 years now. Actually, 13 years, 11 years in security, most of which has been devoted to recruiting in GRC specifically. Got my start in the industry with a consulting firm called Align. I was employee number 15 or so over there and recruited over 100 people in 2.5 years. And that was my first foray into the industry. And I had to kind of teach myself all the terminology and just kind of learn and teach myself. So it was I don't want to say being thrown to the wolves, but it was certainly trial by fire. And it's shaped the way that I view recruiting and hiring over the years. And so for the last 8 years or so, I've been running recruiting firms with the focus on GRC and some other consulting firms, MSSPs. I primarily nowadays work with audit firms, so C3PAOs and other audit firms, and then automation platforms. So obviously that's the big thing in the last 5 years or so in GRC is automation and AI. So I'm really leaning into that these days. Seems to be where a lot of the jobs are too, by the way, is at the automation platforms and at these consulting firms that do CMMC, either readiness or the assessment work. So yeah, that's my background.
Awesome. Welcome. How about yourself, Amber? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can start moderating after that.
Sure. My name's Amber Wheeler. I am a consultant with Aspire Cyber. Before that, it's about 10 to 12 years of IT experience in roles like system engineering, as well as help desk. So you could say I've gotten from the foundation level up to system engineering, and I transitioned into CMMC readiness about almost about 6 months ago. So that's brief of my background. Derek and I were talking, and he had this idea. Hey, a lot of people are asking questions. Okay, I've got my training, I've got my certification, but what do I do next? And I had this idea of doing this Ask Me Anything. And I saw Pete actually on this platform about a year or so ago, and he always came to mind because he was very, easy to talk to. And he was always very transparent and just where the landscape has been in the job market. So reached out to him. Once again, like I say, he's easy to talk to. He said yes at the drop of a dime, and here we are. All right, Pete,
Awesome.
you ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Pete, can you just start us off with kind of expanding more into the recruitment side as of today? What do you see in terms of the roles in the GRC space and the federal compliance space?
Yeah, well, in general, overall, it seems an increasing number of GRC engineering type jobs and jobs at the compliance automation platforms. So the bar is being raised continuously for GRC professionals with a larger focus on technical skills than just, creating policies and procedures. So that's been a huge movement, especially over the last few years. And then I tend to see a lot of hiring on the go-to-market side. And I think in an uncertain economy, that's because companies basically just want to make more money and they don't want to spend money, basically. So you see more hiring in sales, customer success, sales
Mhm.
engineering, that type of stuff, which is what a lot of the platforms are hiring for right now. Federal compliance specifically, though, lots of hiring for CMMC specifically. FedRAMP has been relatively stable, I guess, over the years, whereas CMMC right now is just a mad dash to hire people that can perform these assessments and get companies ready for them. But the majority of the hiring seems to be focused at the consulting firms where people are revenue generating versus on the internal side where they're going to be a cost center, essentially. So broadly, that's where the majority of the hiring is right now, I think.
Okay. And from your perspective as a recruiter, how do you have you seen, in the past couple of years, how that shift has been? Like, where were we, let's say, 5 years ago? And you spoke about where we are today, but, can you just show us kind of how things have changed?
Yeah, so I mean, there for a couple of years, there was almost no hiring happening in GRC, like 23 and 24. Those were brutal years for me and my business. And then post that time period, 2025 hiring seemed to pick back up a little bit. And again, keep in mind, my frame of reference is more so private sector consulting firms and automation platforms. But now hiring seems to be picking back up steadily, gradually. It's certainly an improvement from where it was in 23 and 24. It was a mad dash in hiring in GRC in 21 and 22 as well. And then it kind of fell off for a while, and now it's coming back. So, especially CMMC, that's the biggest hiring push right now in the industry, I would say, is CMMC and automation.
Okay. And to expand on that question, what transferable skills do you see helping candidates make that transition successfully?
It's interesting. I talked to so many hiring managers on my podcast,
Hmm.
and people spend a lot of time thinking about what certifications do I need, what education do I need, what hard skills, technical skills do I need. But people seem to neglect the soft skills aspect.
Okay.
When I talk to hiring managers on my podcast, that's all they ever talk about. I want
Mhm.
people with good work ethic, stable work history, people that are loyal to their employers, that aren't going to jump ship at the first sign of trouble.
Mhm.
That are easy to communicate with, easy to work with, easygoing, team players, that sort of thing. It's a lot of these intangible things. Then on the technical side, I mean, any development experience or help desk experience is always valuable for any security role. And I've talked about this on my podcast too. I think there's very little hiring happening at the entry level in security right now, just broadly speaking. And
Okay.
part of that is due to a lot of these entry level jobs being automated away. Entry level security role is more like a mid level career wise
Okay.
sort of role. So that's worth keeping in mind. Sometimes it may take getting another job first before you get into a security role.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the audience is like in terms of their background, but some technical background is always appreciated.
Okay. Well, one of my next questions was actually going to be about entry role levels. I know from my experience, just by job hunting, that I don't see a lot of entry level security roles, even though they may possibly say that they're entry level. In truth, they're really not. So thank you for expanding on that. So I have a question about candidates trying to get their first role in compliance. So you did touch bases on this. What signals tell you they are serious about moving into GRC when you actually talk to the candidates?
Yeah, I mean, really, and I generally place people at the more senior levels, but
Okay.
I think for anybody at the entry level, what the hiring managers are going to be looking for are that passion for the field, evidence that they've done something in their free time, not just, pursued a degree, but maybe have a home lab, or, you're spending time on webinars, you're engaging in networking opportunities, going to ISACA chapter meetings, that sort of thing. So ultimately, it's about showing, not telling, really,
Okay.
about your interest in the field.
Okay, awesome. And of course, I know a lot of people are probably on the call because we're going to talk about the most excruciating thing, which is resume in the hiring process. And I know this is probably going to take a good chunk of our time. Instead of me just starting off with asking questions, I'd like you to just have your take, share it with us on the resume portion, what you tend to look for. You say you mainly place the senior level. I'd love to get your ideas just from your experience since, your career in this place, in this scope. Just how has it been? What were things of tomorrow and the things of today and the things of yesterday? What have you seen change? And I think some people, they may have some dated, let's say, tactics when it comes to their resume building. What angles should people, within the GRC space go to now that we're in such a different time? Technology is at such a high now. It's kind of hard to even get a phone screening, these days. So what's your take on that? And you take as much time as you need, to expand on that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the job search nowadays, I think it's more important to do more networking than anything else versus worrying too much about a resume or LinkedIn profile. It's like, yeah, those things can help, but they're not the be all end all. I believe relationships, networking, making human connections with people, emotional connections with people, those are really your big tickets to getting a job in security and GRC right now. On the resume front, I tend to be of the opinion that a resume should be as simple in formatting as possible. Reason being, there are some companies that still use very, very old software for applicant tracking systems that have trouble parsing any sort of crazy formatting. So that could be text boxes, tables, panels of any sort, graphics, anything like that can get jumbled up when it's parsed into an older ATS. So if you look at mine, it's like I manually space everything. I do single space, narrow margins, bold and underline, but I don't have any breaks. I don't have any tables, nothing like that. It's super simple. And that's just easier to read in most cases too for the recruiter looking at your resume. I think people really do overestimate the use of AI in screening people. There are a few systems that are able to screen based on keywords or relevancy, but as far as I can tell, they're not very widespread. The one exception to that I've been able to find is called Scout. It's Covenant HR's product. Basically, it's a AI bot that you set a relevancy threshold in their system, say it's 7 out of 10 or 70% relevancy. Anybody below that will automatically be rejected based on what the system deems is relevant or not relevant. And they'll actually get an email that says, here's why you were rejected based on these factors. So pretty cool technology. I think it's an improvement from silence, but I don't think that's a system that's being widespread. I think it's often just a situation where internal recruiting teams are running super lean right now. They're viewed as a cost center. And so, they may have 2 recruiters working on 40 open jobs, which, if each one gets 1,000 applicants, that's a lot of noise to parse through. And if you figure that only 5 to 10% of any given candidate pool of applications of those folks are going to be qualified for that role in the eyes of the recruiter. So it's not a very good hit rate, just kind of blind applying to applications or to roles. So that's why I always say, get out there in the community, network with people, get in some of these corners of the internet, basically where practitioners hang out. So subreddits, often they'll have job boards on there. There's the COE Discord channel as well, specific to CMMC and 800-171. There's the CMMC Professionals Network. I believe you run that one, Derrich. So yeah, all these little
Big
communities.
shout out for that one. Thanks.
Absolutely. And then at the end of the day, I still recruit based on keywords. It's how I was trained to construct a Boolean search string. Often these are pretty complex and pretty long, a combination of or and ands statements, basically. And I'm looking for very specific things. Generally, when a hiring manager hires me, they want to hire somebody who's done the exact same job at a direct competitor in yesterday. So the best way for me to find that is to look for keywords and then make sure that people have stable job histories, that they have their dates very clearly displayed on their resume. And so that's why I always say on the resume, don't feel like you need to stick it all just on one page and try and cram everything in. It's actually better to be more easily legible and have more spaces, have more keywords so we can find you, basically. And that goes for LinkedIn profiles as well. What recruiters care most about is what you've done in your most recent couple of positions and those keywords associated with those, and looking for stable employment as well. So unfortunately, that's one of the biases that dies hard on the hiring manager side, is job hoppers are often frowned upon. So if you can show stable job history, that's a huge feather in your cap.
Okay.
So hope that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's talk about the certifications. This is a big deal. I know we talked about CMMC, but I don't want to leave other professionals, out. So, what certifications do you see hiring managers, organizations really look for their candidates to have, or in the process of obtaining?
Yeah, I mean, generally it's pretty specific. So I think the more favorably viewed ones are more specific. So ISO 42001 lead auditor, for instance, or, obviously the CMMC certifications. It's always good to have a CISA or a CISSP, but those aren't necessarily differentiating anymore. And Security Plus is very, very entry level, generally not viewed very highly by hiring managers, or at least they don't put much stock in it as sort of a hiring criterion. So yeah, it's really more about what you've done, what you can show that you've done, and how you communicate, I would say, than the actual certifications. So, they generally don't recommend folks get just a laundry list of certifications because that's a lot of time and effort and money spent. when hiring managers care more about what you've actually done than the actual letters behind your name in general. So,
Okay. And do you think the future of GRC is more focused on the internal team building, or do you think that, maybe the job market will change where they'll start to rely more heavily on consultants?
yeah, I mean, that's already starting to happen where it's very, very lean internal recruiting
Okay.
teams or internal GRC teams. Was just talking to Chris Honda yesterday about this. He's like the head of GRC, and I think he's the only person in his department. He's a player coach, is the terminology that companies are using nowadays, where basically these folks there's maybe one GRC person and they're leveraging a lot of automation. Increasingly, I think we're going to see more AI agents in GRC. Zania is a platform that just popped up. So it's these very lean internal teams and then consulting firms to come in and actually do the attestations or assessments. The compliance automation platforms too are doing a lot of the readiness type work. So they're actually kind of taking over some of that market from traditional consulting firms because they're customer success managers or compliance architects. They might call them a few different things. They're helping get clients ready for those assessments and then handing off the client to the end auditor or certification body essentially.
And I want to touch a little bit on the interview process. Can you walk us through that? What types of questions do candidates typically get asked in these interviews for these GRC roles?
That's a good question. I'm not really in the actual interviews with the hiring
Okay.
managers. I think most of the time what they're looking for, again, is just that previous experience doing the same type of work that you would be doing in the new
Okay.
role. So that can be tough if you haven't done that role before. You have to be able to pitch yourself as being willing to, quote unquote, hit the ground running without needing much training. I think at the end of the day, it's about demonstrating your knowledge in whatever specific discipline. Having deep knowledge of a specific framework, not just from a high level, that's going to be what the hiring managers are looking for.
Okay. And from your scope, since you say you're not in necessarily the interview itself, in the part of that process, what common mistakes do you see a lot of candidates do that may be actually hurting more than helping?
Yeah, good question. I would say some stuff that seems kind of obvious, but you'd be surprised. Don't talk about religion or politics in interviews. Uh,
Okay.
be dressed
Noted.
professionally, even for video interviews. Also very important. Have a clean background behind you and nothing
Okay.
crazy. Certainly not a messy room. That's always a bad look. I think not asking any questions is another really common one. I mean, it's fair enough if you don't have any, because the hiring manager was really good at answering all of your questions that you had prepared, but always good to have a list of questions prepared ahead of time. I generally recommend having just a Word document open in front of you for video interviews. That way you have all your questions written down, and if they ask you, you're kind of put on the spot. Sometimes you might forget. I know it's happened to me
Yeah.
before. It helps to have it, right there in front of you. So I would say those are the major ones. And just not being prepared, not having done any research on the company or the hiring manager, anything you can do to build rapport and show, hey, I actually looked at your LinkedIn profile. I looked at the website. I looked at the job description, and here's how I can contribute to all these different areas. So just not addressing those things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've done that in the past. I honestly have not heard anyone else speak on that where you prepare, you have the Word document on your screen. I just had a moment. It was just like, well, I'm not in front of them. They're not going to, they're not going to know that I have a Word document up. And so it's kind of leveraging
Oh,
that remote style interview.
yeah. What's funny is that just reminded me of another thing that I've heard of people doing wrong now. Don't have ChatGPT open in front of you, and don't be reading things off of ChatGPT. That's actually happened to me to multiple candidates that I presented for this last role I just
Okay.
filled. I think there was 2 or 3 candidates that did that of the 6 that I presented them. So common mistake, because you come across as robotic and there's kind of a delay, and the hiring managers can tell basically. But if you have a Word document open in front of you, that's different. Maybe have a few bullet points, selling points for yourself for the
Right.
role. But that's different than reading off a paragraph. 2, they might be able to see it in your glasses or screen or something. So
Note to
worth keeping in mind.
people who wear glasses, please remember that they can see on your glasses. Good take. And we'll talk about the other side of it. What would you advise candidates to do when possibly it may not be a great fit in terms of the environment? How do you feel about that? I know there's that side where you're more so supporting the organization, but I would imagine that, you do try to support the candidates where you can. And I'd like to see what have possibly happened on the other side. No one's perfect. We're all in this together. It's just we have different dynamics. So I'd love to hear, from your experience. Maybe you had a great candidate and maybe the company was not prepared to receive that type of candidate.
I'm not sure what you're asking entirely. I mean, generally, us recruiters, whether we're internal or
Hmm.
external, I'm an external recruiter because I own a
Hmm.
recruiting firm, whereas internal recruiters are working for the company themselves and they're finding people for the
Okay.
roles. I do career guidance calls and resume reviews for
Okay.
folks just kind of to help the industry out, but it's not actually my job to place individuals. My job is to fill roles
Okay.
basically. So if there is a recruiter that's willing to give you some free advice or resume review, by all means, take them up on it. I would just say don't necessarily expect that because ultimately the recruiters are paid by the hiring company and not the job seeker. The exception to that would be reverse recruiters. For what it's worth, I'm not aware of any in our industry
Okay.
specifically, and there are career coaches and things that can kind of help you land jobs, but ultimately, those are paid services as well. Not sure if that's what you're
Okay.
asking.
And this is the section where, please, everyone that's viewing or audience member, you can start to drop the questions. And this is a Ask Me Anything. So be respectful and we'll get your questions answered today. I do want to ask Pete, would you consider possibly either looking at someone's resume on live or their LinkedIn profile on live today?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah. So any takers on that?
Okay. Sounds like a lot of fun. Who wants to be in the hot seat?
I know, right? Because I have some.
And while we get,
I'll be the person.
all right, Sharnice should have known the Marine would be willing to do it. Go for it.
All right.
All right.
Yes, either a resume or your LinkedIn. You can drop it in the
Link.
public chat. And Pete, just take it away.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can attach files there. It'll probably have to be a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. Okay, everyone. All
Yeah.
right.
All right.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
it's in the chat now.
Yes, I'm doing
Yeah,
that
we
now.
see it. Yep.
So I
Oh,
guess I'll put it in and share my screen here.
all right. Awesome.
There it is.
Okay, let's see. Hang on. Okay, let's see here. Share screen. Uh,
Give me the option. If not, I can share and then have you do it. Oh, I think it's pulling up now. All right.
okay. You guys
We
see
have
that?
action. Yes.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so first blush, really good profile picture, looks professional, positive, very clear professional background. That's awesome. Always want to have some sort of profile picture. Generally advise probably against AI pictures. While they're cool, they don't actually represent what you look like. So would generally stray away from those. Let's see. So when I'm recruiting, I'm mostly browsing LinkedIn. I do all of my recruiting outbound. I haven't posted a job in 12 years now. So I'm going on LinkedIn Recruiter and I'm going through people's profiles just like this, just so you guys know. So best thing you can do in the modern day, the way recruiting is done, is have a good LinkedIn profile with lots of good keywords, so I can find you in my LinkedIn search. Using my Boolean, but she does a great job of calling out CMMC specifically here. GRC strategy implementation. This is all great. Normally, we spend the majority of our time as recruiters looking down here at the various roles that you've held because we're looking for those keywords as they relate to the job that we're recruiting for. So the fact that she calls out that she's actually assisted with CMMC level 2 in her most recent role, that's perfect for breaking into a CMMC specific role. But yeah, as many keywords as you can add to these sections in bullet points versus paragraph format, that's definitely what you want, because then it's easy to read. And then make sure that you have dates for your LinkedIn profile as well, not just the years. That goes for resume as well, by the way. Let's see. Okay, got masters in there. That's good. Got certifications. That's good. Yeah, so overall, very, very good. I would say if any improvements, you could just add more bullet points, so it's more things to pick up on. But other than that, looks great.
Okay, Charnice, did you have any
And
other
then you have another
questions?
one as well, Pete.
Oh,
Charnice
okay.
put hers in there as well. So that was
Okay, cool.
Adrian. She just did.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's see. Share screen. It's loading. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's taking a bit. It's just taking a second to load, I guess.
If not, I can try to load and drive.
Yeah, it's weird. It's showing like the tab heading, but not the actual screen. Okay, here. Yeah, if you're okay, hang on. Won't let me cancel either. um,
Can you see my screen now?
I can, yeah, but I have this window open that I can't exit out of for some reason.
Oh. I love technology.
That's weird. Yeah, it's like grayed out the rest of my screen entirely. We'll see. Maybe try scrolling down a little bit. I'll see if I can see it. Yeah, see, I'm not seeing anything.
Let me stop sharing and see if it gives you an option. Try again. And you say it's still grayed out. You can't close it at all either.
Yeah, I can't do anything. It's like it's frozen. I may have to rejoin.
Okay. While you do that, let's have you rejoin, and then while we wait for you to come back, we can make sure people put their questions in the chat. All right.
Yeah. Someone in a separate chat.
See a couple. So Camden asked a question, and then we have another one about the students. Make sure we get those answered.
You said
If
students.
anyone else has questions.
You see 2 questions. I see one from Camden. You see another one?
Yeah, I see one at the top from Mr. Master, Mike Sir Master, Mike Sir Master. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're not seeing that one.
No, I'm not.
I'll be able to read that one
Okay.
off once Pete comes back.
All right, I am back. Let me try this again here.
If not, like I said, I can share and just drive while you talk through LinkedIn analysis.
All right. Whoa. Okay,
There we
what
go.
about now? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So overall, great profile picture. Took advantage of the banner there too, which is good. Showing, not telling again with Substack. Perfect. Let's see here. Lots of good keywords in here. Love to see all of this. She summarizes everything nice, where you see degrees right at the top as well, certifications, keywords, that's all great. Let's see. Again, I see more frameworks, good keywords, tangible accomplishments. That's always a big thing. So if you can show that you saved a company money or improved efficiency by X percentage, Those sorts of things really jump out on the page. So numbers, symbols, acronyms, percentages, all that sort of stuff. And actually using the numbers and not spelling out the numbers, again, that pops out on the page, which is good. So that looks good. She's, holding the company confidential, which is fine, especially if it's a policy. Ideally, there would be a company name there because, what we're often looking for is somebody working at a competitor or similar type company. One way to get around that is you could say in X, Y, and Z industry or something like that at the very least, just to provide some additional context. But other than that, looks good. Lots of good keywords. All your dates and all of your experience on there. Always like to see veterans, so that's good. Got your degrees there, perfect. Projects is always good to have. I don't know how many people actually look at these. I don't personally, but again, generally I'm looking for senior level folks. So generally I'm just looking for what they've done in their most recent role more than anything else. But yeah, filling out as much of this stuff as you can is always good, and listing all of your skills. Sometimes I'll find a keyword in the skills that isn't actually listed anywhere else in somebody's profile, which is interesting. So that's a good way to get captured in searches, even if you don't want to include stuff under your actual experience, though that would be the ideal place for any sort of keywords. And just keep in mind, I guess as another aside, that everybody can see all of your activity on LinkedIn. So as you can see here, posts and comments, I can see everything that she's ever written, basically. So keep that in mind when you're out there job searching. Negativity doesn't usually play very well, especially if you're posting about complaining how the job market sucks and that sort of thing. Ultimately, that's going to hinder your chances, I think. You may get a lot of engagement on those posts because there are a lot of people in that same bucket and having that same struggle. But ultimately, hiring managers want to hire positive people that solve problems, and not people that create problems. So always keep that in mind with all of your LinkedIn interactions. But overall, great profile here.
Thank you, Pete.
Good job.
Yeah, good job. We have some real pros, Adrian and
They're just show off. They're
Charnice,
just showing off.
LinkedIn professionals.
If you see a question that I don't see, I see Camden's
Oh, yeah.
question. I think I'm missing something else.
All right. So yeah, I see the first question says, I often have group meetings with young students from various schools that don't have experience. What can we tell them about breaking into the industry since they don't have the experience?
Yeah, that's kind of the catch-22 that a lot of folks talk about. And I struggled with this myself back when I graduated and with my undergraduate degree, and the job market was terrible. It was the beginning of the recession back in 2008. So I've been there. All of that to say, I think it's really, again, about just demonstrating what you know and showing, not telling. Having GitHub repos or Substacks, that sort of thing, those are always good. Listing things that you're learning in your off time, networking as much as you possibly can with potential hiring managers. So local chapter meetings of ISACA, ISC Squared, ISSA, hanging out in all of these online communities like the GRC Meetup Slack, or the CUI COE Discord channel or CMMC Discord channel. All of these communities online are good ways to meet people. So it's really, I think, more about who you know than actually what you know and your personality and communication skills. But anything you can do to show what you actually know through projects and demonstrating things, that's your best bet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I got the Camden question, but any other, Derrich, that you see?
No, that's the only one. So the Camden question is next.
Okay. So Cameron asks, you said it's good to have a list of questions.
Who's off mute? Cameron, one.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So Cameron asks, you said it's good to have a list of questions on a document. Do you have any good simple questions to grab some extra points in an interview?
Yeah, I think one would be, what does success look like in this role? How would you know? How do you measure success? How does the company measure success? Could you describe what you're looking for in this new hire? So that enables you basically to draw out what they're looking for, and then you can kind of sell yourself to those characteristics that they're looking for, which is a great question. Anything you can do to show that you're self-motivated through the form of a question is good. So what does the promotion path look like? I noticed X, Y, and Z industry headline. How do you think that's going to factor in for the company? Asking questions that show that you've done your research, basically. Or, how did you enjoy jumping into this company from your previous company because you looked at their LinkedIn profile, that sort of thing. So using questions as a way to demonstrate that you've done your research in general as a category is probably a good idea.
Okay. Let's see. We have Adrian. What role should we target based on where the industry is headed?
I mean, if you're new to the industry, get any job you can. Just get that first role under your belt and you will be much, much, much more marketable for the future. That said, there seems to be a lot of openings on the go-to-market side right now, especially with the automation platform. So for federal stuff, you'd be looking at like RegScale. Trying to think of some other examples. Aptega, Secure Frame has a CMMC module, I believe. So looking at like customer success manager roles in those types of organizations is always good because one, you build up customer facing experience, and two, you're building that compliance knowledge as you go. Also, the way the industry is headed right now, it's just a mad dash to hire people at these MSPs and consulting firms that are doing the readiness and assessment work. So try to find every little MSP out there that does some sort of CMMC services, and just go find their founders, their directors, and kind of pitch yourself. Hey, I have the CCP, interested in doing some CMMC work. Here's why I'm a good fit, that sort of thing.
And we have from Ken. What can you meaningfully do while waiting for a tier 3 determination, or what should one strategy be? That may be more of a Derrich question, unless you have some experience with that, Pete. I don't think you're.
I couldn't speak to that unless he means like, what should I do on the job hunting front while waiting for tier 3 determination? That I could speak
Okay.
to, but it would be most really about networking, I would say, just building your network on LinkedIn and through these online channels.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of just reiterating a lot of what you mentioned, just show, it's all about showing and networking. And there are a lot of different communities out there that does give you that platform to show your skills. I'm contacted almost daily by people that send their resume, but we built that platform, the CMMC Professional Network, to give you an opportunity to actually show what you can do in a safe training environment. So I typically respond to them and say, hey, get involved in CPN, because that within that community, a lot of business relationship have came from that, just because members are being active, they're showing what they can do, they're building that know, like, trust factor. But if you're just sending a resume, there's no connection there. So if you have opportunities to get active in these communities, do so. And we expounded upon CPN. We created our CMMC Copilot, which is more of the hands-on, especially for people who are waiting on their tier 3. That can be anywhere from 6 to 9 months plus, where you can be waiting on that tier 3 in limbo. So we created that environment where they can get more hands-on training and start building a portfolio of things they have done in CMMC versus just kind of sitting around waiting, twiddling their thumbs.
Yep. And I should note too that the CUI COE Discord channel, they have a job board on there, as well as I believe there's a mentor mentee section. That's something else you can do as a job seeker, or, just in general in the industry right now is a good idea to get a mentor. And if you really impress somebody who's a CISO or VP of InfoSec, something like that, and they're able to vouch for you, I've seen people get placed that way, just through the recommendation of somebody really senior in the industry. And you can often find those mentors on a lot of these platforms. So,
Yeah. Have to get active, put yourself out there. Peace not going to come knock on your front door while you're sitting on the couch waiting. You got to put yourself out there and show what you can do. I can't emphasize that enough. So do we have any other questions? Let's see one from Alexis. Will my law degree help or hinder, especially working in GRC and trying to break into CMFC as a career transitioner?
I would say it's neutral to positive. Yeah, I certainly don't think that'll work against you. I mean, I've seen people that were like teachers for a while, an education major, and they ended up making it into, a VP of sales role for coal fire. I mean, it's people from all different walks of life get these jobs. It's more about who you know than of your credentials, I think, in most cases.
Yeah, agreed.
Hey, Derek. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Pete. Nice to meet you guys. I apologize. I accepted the meeting tentative because I was in a medical procedure this morning. I wasn't sure if I was going to get out on time.
Mhm.
So I'm a little late to jump to the meeting, but I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. I think this is more of a Q&A session. Is that right?
Yeah, at this point, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, the only thing that comes to mind, because I heard Pete talk about MSPs earlier. I did have an MSP reach out to me recently about, working through CMMC mock assessments. I do have my CCP. And so just kind of preparing them for certification. My biggest challenge, and this is a conversation offline, Derek, but my biggest challenge is how to quote something like that, how to determine the number of hours in terms of commitment to the client to help them prepare towards certification. By the way, I didn't introduce myself. So I'm the director of the cyber range at UTSA. I've been IT director for a lot of different verticals for the past 20 something years. So I've been in IT a long time, but I'm excited to be part of this cohort. I appreciate the invite.
Certainly. Well, welcome, Joey. A lot of great things in your role at UT San Antonio. So yeah, really excited to collaborate with you. As far as having said
I
that,
appreciate it.
the quoting, yeah, that is a big challenge that a lot of consultants have because once they first they're probably used to being an employee and they're used to the employer setting the rate. But once you start consulting, now you have to really come to terms with what you feel your services are worth. And there's no right or wrong answer for that. When I first got started in consulting a little over 4 years ago, I looked at some of those freelancing websites like Upwork and looked at profiles that were doing people that are offering similar service and what they were charging. But I knew I couldn't charge the top rate because those profiles, a lot of them already had like a lot of reviews and it was more mature. So I knew what I wanted to work up to. So as Pete mentioned earlier, when you're first getting started, yes, start getting some work performance, whether that's an employee or as a consultant. So once you start getting some happy customers and some good reviews, now and then you start getting busier, that's usually an indicator for you maybe should start charging more. And Pete, do you have any feedback on what you're seeing as far as like market rate, CCPs, CCAs?
That's kind of tough to say. I mean, it all depends on if you're looking at a 1099 situation or employee. I mean, I would mostly view it from an employee lens, and it's going to vary widely based on experience. So, like if somebody had 20 years of GRC experience, but they're also a CCA and they worked at a consulting firm, they're going to command a higher price for another consulting firm than somebody who's just getting into it, obviously. So, I mean, you could be looking at anywhere from 75 way up to 200, I would say, just depending on experience.
And Pete, is that your dog or someone else's dog?
That's mine. Yeah. A little more
Oh, okay. Just low the stress.
little dog
All right.
syndrome.
Okay, I had my connection drop. So what did I miss apart from the little dog syndrome?
Or had some good topics about how much to charge.
hmm
Also, someone with like a law degree, would that hurt or hinder them? Yeah, kind of just all boils back to what can you do in this era where so many people have certifications and all these credentials and degrees. It's like, okay, what are you doing with it? Well, show me that you bring some type of value to the table. That's just my
hmm
viewpoint as an employer, and that's the key. So, I can,
Well, and then the challenge also is like level 1 versus level 2 preparation. I mean, it's a big difference.
Mhm.
So obviously a lot more commitment in level 2,
hmm
but that's kind of my struggle, Derek, is trying to figure that out, how to scope out the work that, the commitment is at 1 hour a week with the client. Do they let them do a self-assessment and just kind of hold their hand through the process, or just trying to figure that out? And that's to me has been the biggest thing. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
Good question. And I will say on the readiness side, you have to factor in when you're thinking about with how you're pricing those engagements. they can be really long engagements. I know for Aspire Cyber, really take a white glove approach and really walk our clients from start to finish. Finish means certification in hand. Those engagements can be anywhere from 3 to 4 months to 12 plus months. You're just really walking that journey with the client. So it can, with that being said, is even more challenging to really price what that looks like from a time commitment. But yeah, just knowing that on the readiness side is very involved. It's high touch, and yeah, a lot of times, especially for small business, you start from scratch. You're helping them identify what the assets are, what type of sensitive information they're handling. You're really
Mm-hmm.
just going through those stages with them. So just you gotta love this type of work if you're on the readiness side. On the assessment side,
Mm-hmm.
it's more just straightforward, objective. You're there to assess the requirements, and you're on to the next one. But the readiness is a lot more involved.
What about the timeline of, the whole rollout and being rolled out in phases? What I understand, in November of this year, we go into the second phase of CMMC, which is now everyone's going to be required to have a C3PAO, certified assessment from a third party. So does it make sense for companies today to be going through their self-assessment so that they can have that in their back pocket and not have to wait till November when maybe a self-assessment is not an option anymore?
I would say it makes sense, but I would think as far as that topic, it will certainly talk more offline with that. That's not going to be really Pete's expertise. That'd be more of a separate webinar. But Pete, going back to the technical recruiting side, what are some topics we haven't touched on yet? And also, you mentioned your podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, it's called Talent Gap Fireside Chat. You can see the background behind me there. Talking to a variety of hiring managers across the industry, from CISO to I've had some marketing folks on lately, salespeople, just talking about hiring in the field and what we can do to shore up some of the gaps that exist. Like, we don't have enough entry level jobs right now, I think, relative to the number of people trying to break into the industry. So a lot of it is about how can we make the business case to open up more of those roles, so we actually have senior level people in the future. Because I think a lot of companies are trying to automate away the entry level jobs right now. But I think we're going to see a massive swing, a pendulum swing in 5 to 10 years, because nobody
Mm-hmm.
was training the entry level folks now to be senior people to run these AI tools in 5 to 10 years. So that's been a hot topic lately. But yeah, lots of hiring managers. So you get a sense for what they're actually looking for as hiring managers, how they view applicants, strategies that they use, how they're able to retain people. You can really get a sense for who's a good hiring manager on the show. I think some of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite hiring managers over the years have been on there. So, yep, that's
Okay.
it.
I
Awesome.
like it.
Did we read the question from Orlando? There's a question in the chat. I can read it if you need me to.
Sure. Let me check it out. And while we do that, can you hold up your dog? We can see the dog ears. Let's see the
The
face of your dog.
troublemaker.
Let's see. Oh, adorable, adorable. And that highlights another thing. So Pete, he's doing a podcast. Just any way you can put yourself out there, whether you're going to do a podcast, be on a podcast, and I always say put out content as well. Pete, can you speak to that? Like, how has that helped your business in terms of building that brand and putting yourself out there, interviewing people, doing a podcast, being on webinars like this? Has that benefited, helped you grow your business?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and niching down too, I think has been a big part of recent success that I've had, just in getting new clients. And I would imagine for a job seeker, it would also be valuable to be kind of a thought leader, or at least put out content about what you're learning in a very specific domain. If you try to
Right.
be everything to everybody, you're going to be nothing to everybody, basically. So it is important, I think, to specialize, especially in this market. Um, to some degree. Then again, you see job descriptions that are asking for 4 completely disparate skill sets in one security engineer. That is
Right.
becoming more and more common as security teams get more and more lean. But yeah, showing, not telling, again, back to that theme, writing up a story about what you learned and why that's cool and why a hiring manager might be interested in it, and then always constantly connecting with hiring managers in your field. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that. And
Awesome.
before I read Orlando's question, just to piggyback on that, to highlight Amber's story. So she joined the CMMC Professionals Network and immediately became active in that community. And they did like a mock assessment, and she led that initiative. And then seeing the documents they produced, like the system security plan, policies, and procedures, was really blown away. And like, wow, this is somebody I want to actually work with on the business side. So it just highlights just how important that is in that safe training environment to demonstrate what you can do versus Amber just sending me her resume and say, hey, I'm a technical writer. Okay, great. The other 10 resumes I already have with their technical writers too. But for her to say, oh,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to lead with value, I just can't emphasize that enough. Anything you want to add to that, Amber?
Yeah. I've been networking since I started working. So I would say to expand on it from the candidate side, I would say for people to be strategic in your networking. You know what you can and can't do in terms of the responsibilities that you have. I mean, it's pretty obvious. A lot of people are either mothers, fathers, spouses, significant others, etc. So you have to look at how to balance, your professional side as well as the personal side. So when you network, how are you doing it? We're in the era where technology is really key, and knowing how to use technology is going to be a very, very big thing. CPN, I have not physically met Derrich among other professionals that I work with today, but the way we have, like you talked about, Pete, your soft skills, all of us, I believe, are really, 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 really good. And not just having them, but also continuing to expand on those soft skills. And that's going to help out a lot. You can leverage meeting people online, but you definitely have to allow people to see your personality. And like you said, I just saw opportunity. I never saw a group that was this active, CPN. And that's what I had been waiting on. I actually had been looking for about 6 months, and I got into other groups and I was paying memberships monthly, and it just was not working out at all. I knew what I wanted, I just didn't see it for a while. And so I actually saw, the same way with you, Pete, I saw Derrich on a interview, podcast style, and the way he articulated security controls was like, well, this guy is not just smart. He actually knows how to articulate security controls in a way where someone who is not in IT or not in cyber, they can understand the basic flow of what he's going to do in order to help you get through the certification process. And so that's where I have to build trust in leaders before I even make the decision I'm going to let them lead me. And I think a lot of people don't maybe take that in consideration. You need to be led properly, and having strategy behind that. I think we need to be more aware as professionals of what we actually want and not just saying, I need a job and I need to make this certain amount of money. We're not in that space, I don't think, anymore where that's enough. I think there may have been a time, but because it's very competitive, everybody wants to be in IT, everybody wants to be in cyber security space, no matter what it is. We need to get a very fine scope of what are your skills naturally that you just have and how to gear that towards a specific type of role within either IT or cyber. I think that's it. And as far as networking goes, like I said, you got to put yourself out there. You have to be honest. What kind of help do you need? And that will, I think, be able to allow people to find those spaces. Specifically on LinkedIn is a very, very large platform. And, CPN was just in this corner over here. And there's also talked about the future of CPN, and that what allowed me to respect him as a visionary, and being able to work with him now, I can start to see that actually forming. And so that's what I mean by having a leader that you can trust. And yeah, you just kind of go from there. You know what I mean? It takes away a lot of the guesswork when someone has not just a plan, but they're open to share that plan, through his content, his engagements when he goes out and travels. So it's a big deal to have that person out there that's not just doing it for them, but they're doing it for the future of this industry.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, Orlando, your question, I think we pretty much answered just opportunities to start to get some hands on experience. And even outside of just CMMC or GRC, with any um, role, I tell people also look at nonprofits, for example, or small businesses. They need help, they need support. So, lead with value.
Yeah.
Identify. Let's give you an example. Let's say if it's a small business that that's in defense contracting or considering defense contracting, likely they don't have a budget for CMMC, but you can start educating them on that. And a way to do that for the masses is putting out content. if you're an expert on CMMC or whatever your specialty is, start putting out content, start sharing that knowledge from your perspective. Everyone brings a unique perspective. And I think that's a big hurdle that a lot of us techies have a challenge with, putting ourselves out there and being on camera, things like that. But it would do wonders for your business. Stepping outside the comfort zone, like Amber said, she's her too. But me, a couple years ago, it was me too. But once if you start putting yourself out there, you're gonna get your reps and you'll get better. So on that note, with leading with values, we started to close this out. Like, Pete, we really appreciate you sharing your insights. How could this Aspire Cyber, the CPN community, how can we help you? Like, what are some good leads and opportunities that you look for as a technical recruiter?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm always looking for new clients. If I had any bottleneck as a business, that's always been it, is just having the jobs to fill. Because I'm very efficient in my recruiting. I've been doing it for so long to where if I get a job, I have it filled in a couple of weeks. So that's always been the bottleneck, is just having the open job. So if you guys landed a company and they happen to be hiring, any vouch is certainly appreciated. But yeah, and then check out the podcast as well, I'd say.
Yes, awesome. Any other closing questions for Pete before we let him go? We're trying to get our money's worth out of him. We got a couple more minutes. But yeah, I know this is a very hot topic, and I see Brianna said thanks, and she's someone else I wanted to highlight. She's an officer in the Army Reserves, and what caught my attention about her is she's putting out content as an officer in the military, and that's, you don't see that a lot of from people in uniform, where they kind of are nervous or scared about putting out content. But she's building a personal brand, so that's something I've commended her on. Like, if you're in uniform, start building that personal brand. You're in uniform, working for an employer, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the value. That's something that an employer can't take from you. You can't be laid off and lose that. So it really is important to build that personal brand, and it's going to give you more leverage in this workspace.
Yeah, well, and to bring authenticity to a platform like LinkedIn, that's what I found is very successful for me, is just being myself and my personality showing through in the posts, not just writing exactly what ChatGPT wrote and just copy pasting it. I personally write every single one of my posts because it's my thinking through problems, and what I put on the page. And I guess that's another point too. Just job seeking advice, I guess, would be figure out what problems you solve, especially if you uniquely solve problems that other people don't. You have to kind of figure out what your competitive advantage is and just really highlight that. Like for me, I'm the only recruiter in the GRC niche specifically that's only done it for, 11 plus years. There's no other person that's me. You have to figure out what your unique thing is and just blast it out to the world authentically.
Love it.
Nice.
That's a good one to drop the mic on. So thanks,
Yeah.
Amber, for coordinating this and moderating. Like Amber said, she came across Pete a year ago, but he was top of mind for us still for this, because he specializes. That's another benefit of specializing. You can be top of mind versus you're a generalist. You're just in a big pool. So yeah, this is awesome. And thanks again. I think a lot of people are going to get value from this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.